All right, thank you. So this morning is a time for reflection about the future of the fellowship. Perhaps you share my concern about how long we can carry on without increasing our membership. And it's wonderful to have new people here in the last few weeks. So I will share my opinions on how to respond to that concern. And after the service, and maybe if we have time after I speak, we'll see, but maybe certainly after the service, we can continue to dialogue during coffee and at other times in the future. Hopefully we can do that. For today is an important conversation that we need to have, and one that is going to be ongoing. This morning's a time for creative thinking, maybe thinking outside the box a little bit. So let me begin with an anecdotal story. Last week, Steve talked about the importance of advertising, the importance of branding. How do we brand something that will get the attention of people to buy that product? So that was very insightful. So a few years ago, Dorothy and I spent a week in St. John's, Newfoundland, exploring the east coast of that beautiful province. And besides St. John's, there's a little village called Kitividi. Has anyone been there? Kathy and Dick's been there. Little village called Kitividi, and in Kitividi there's a microbrewery, and their signature product is called iceberg beer. So what they do is they go out in the spring when the icebergs are flowing up past Newfoundland, and they get chunks of iceberg, and they bring them back and they melt them down, and they use that water to make their beer, which they called iceberg beer. And so, people thought that was fantastic. It's a great selling point. They were curious. They bought it. So, they sold it in a clear bottle like this. Joe and Doreen, I'm just holding up a clear, empty beer bottle. So that's what iceberg beer was sold in originally. And then all of a sudden, sales went a little flat. So they wondered what they could do to increase the sales. So they did one thing that worked. They changed the color of the bottle from clear to blue. So this is a bottle of iceberg beer. And once they changed the color of the bottle, sales took off. So how brilliant was that? When you think of an iceberg, I guess your brain thinks blue. The blue sea, the blue ocean. It worked. So do we need to do some kind of rebranding for our fellowship to get the word out there, to let people know that we exist and why we exist? So I just want to thank everyone for doing the recent survey. Anne told me there's been 19 responses to that survey, so that's very good. Thank you very much. And the executive will review the results of that survey, and that will be very helpful, the information that you have provided, your thoughts. So I discovered this fellowship in 1996 when Joanne Alexander invited me to speak. And I still remember coming here for the very first time, not knowing what to expect. I'd never heard of the Unitarian Fellowship, but being very pleasantly surprised by the warm welcome that Doreen has alluded to, the warm welcome I received, and by the absence of any dogma or creed. That really impressed me. And when I asked about the absence of dogma and creed, a member explained it to me like this. He said, Allan, how many Unitarian Universalists does it take to change a light bulb? I said, I don't know. And he said, none. We let the light bulb change itself. So I liked that answer, and soon afterwards I started attending this fellowship. A few years later, I was elected president of the fellowship. I've also served as program chair for a number of years. And in 2002, I was appointed a lay chaplain, began officiating non-religious wedding ceremonies, child dedication ceremonies, and funeral and memorial services. along with Wendy Starr, who was also a lay chaplain at that time. We found ourselves officiating many gay and lesbian weddings when marriage equality became legal in Ontario in 2003. We had the special joy and privilege of officiating ceremonies for quite a few American couples who came here to be legally married, a civil right that was denied them in their own country. So what an honor for Wendy and I to be able to do that for those American couples. My discovery of this fellowship and my subsequent journey has quite honestly been a life-changing experience for me. I'm definitely a better person for having joined, for being here. And I will always be grateful. And over the years, I've had a number of aha moments when something has been spoken or done that has set a little light bulb off in my head. A moment of clarity, an aha moment. And I'll just share one of those experiences with you. Some years ago, there was a family from Port Huron, the Mazzarellis. Mark and Maureen, they came with their two daughters, Michaela and Sean. And one day, Mark, the dad, got up and lit a candle and said, I'm lighting this candle of joy for being able to come here to this fellowship. He said, it is important for my daughters, for our daughters, Michaela and Sean, to come here and witness people being respectful and compassionate. Because, he said, they don't always see that during the rest of their week. So that aha moment just stayed with me. That memory is in there. I'll always remember that. What a beautiful testament to this fellowship and what we offer. And what was important to the Mazzarelli family back then is arguably even more relevant, and so much division and intolerance and fear of what the future will bring. So much uncertainty. There are so many threats that confront our children and grandchildren, from anxiety about the climate crisis, to drugs, to online threats where they risk being bullied or being manipulated and exploited in the worst ways by online predators. And while Mark and Maureen were loving parents who were concerned for their daughters' mental well-being, as well as their physical and emotional well-being, it also demonstrated that being a parent today is also very stressful. It takes a mental and emotional toll on parents. And in fact, last year, the US Surgeon General issued a special public health advisory, which pointed out that the stress of parenting can be hazardous to the mental health of mums and dads. And I just downloaded a copy of that report a few days ago. So the Surgeon General only does that when they are concerned about an important public health crisis, if you like. So when anxiety and depression and a sense of hopelessness for the future are rampant, it's important that UU congregations exist, and we can be a safe haven in the storms of our troubled world. A safe place for children and youth to explore their creative ideas, as well as their fears, their doubts, and their beliefs. A loving community for all ages, as our covenant. A loving community for all ages. A place where they will be accepted and celebrated for who they are, as unique individuals. Because an important reason we all come here is to build community, is it not? We come here to listen to each other, to support each other, to heal each other. We come here to serve, to grow, to question, to transcend our fears. We come here to be together. And as the sound of the bell reminds us every Sunday, we come to set our cares aside and be fully present here together. A couple of days ago, I came across these words by the Austrian poet Rainer Maria Rilke, who wrote, "All this hurrying soon will be over. Only when we tarry do we touch the holy." On Sunday mornings, we slow down, we take a break from our everyday lives, and we tarry here. And sometimes we touch the holy. And we leave here refreshed in mind and spirit. It has been said many times that our fellowship is a best kept secret, that more people would join if only they knew we existed, and I believe that to be true. It's very unfortunate then that people do not know we exist, as I didn't know this fellowship existed before Joanne Alexander called me and invited me here. Most people have no idea what Unitarian Universalism is or what this fellowship stands for. And when they hear that we are a fellowship or a church, they may think that we are just like the church that they used to attend themselves, the one that they left, the church being no longer relevant to them. So here's one thing for us to consider. Is our name, the Unitarian Fellowship of Sarnia and Port Huron, an impediment to our growth, to attracting new members? Is the word fellowship outdated? Is there a better name for this fellowship than calling it a fellowship? So we can think outside the box. Think of an alternative name, perhaps. I know we have respected this name for the last 69 years. But does that mean it should always be called by that? Because it's no secret that churches all over North America are closing. They're closing their doors in ever increasing numbers. I read last year that more than 6,800 religious buildings had been sold in the United States in the previous 5 years. And more than 1,400 were up for sale. And it seems to me that the pandemic has just made this trend even worse. When I joined this fellowship, we were one of a little over 50 Unitarian Universalist congregations in Canada. And I believe that number is probably down around 43 now. A drop of 14% since I joined. It's not catastrophic, but the trend is likely to continue. Death by 1,000 cuts. The Canadian Unitarian Council is struggling financially, but still manages to offer a variety of programs and services. And I do appreciate that the CUC continues to focus quite a bit on children and youth, young adults and families. For example, next month in May, the CUC is hosting a gathering of UU teenagers in Montreal. They call this Canoodle, Can-U-U-Oodle. Not sure how it's pronounced, but there's 2 U's in the middle. It's just a wonderful opportunity for UU youth to get to know others from across Canada. Make friends, create lifelong memories, and rise to the challenges of service and develop some wisdom at the same time. And then for children, youth, and adults, there's also the very popular Unicamp, which is near Guelph, where some of our families have gone in previous years. Every summer they offer camping and a number of experiences in nature. Great opportunity for UUs to come together and make friends during the summer. We live in an increasingly secular society. And while a secular society is a threat to mainstream churches, it should become for us an opportunity. It should be our strength. We are relevant and unique, I think, because of our embrace of secular humanism combined with spiritual diversity. And over the years, I have seen people come here who describe themselves as pagans or neo-pagans, as Buddhists, as liberal Christians, agnostics, humanists. We even had a man one time who came, he was a Scientologist. And last year, Jim Ferguson, who has spoken here, he is a Baha'i, and he spoke about how the Baha'i values are very similar to Unitarian, UU values. We welcome all. We welcome all, and we celebrate that diversity. Our third principle states, we covenant to affirm and promote acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. So what are people and families looking for today? I read a blog post by a millennial. I think a millennial is someone between the age of 25 and 40. And that person wrote, I want a church service that is not sensational, flashy, or particularly relevant. I can be entertained anywhere. At church, I do not want to be entertained. I do not want to be the target of anyone's marketing. I want to be asked to participate in the life of an ancient/future community. An ancient/future community. Well, that sounds like a potential Unitarian Universalist to me. Our ancient community is our long history of progressive values that we continue to take into the future. So what can we do to reach out to people like that millennial? How do we move into the future? How can we evolve to attract more families? A couple of values that we have historically been very good at. Number one, we know how to create an inclusive, loving community where all are welcomed, and we celebrate that diversity. And number two, we have often taken the lead among faith communities in advocating for social justice, whether it was for marriage equality or medical assistance in dying, for example. We often take the lead on these big controversial issues. So the survey responses, as I mentioned, will be very appreciated. The executive will review that at their next meeting, I think. But our focus this morning is to further explore how we can attract new members. Do you have an idea on how we can grow our membership? I'll just finish with a couple of ideas. Next month, at the end of May, we're having a Death Cafe downtown. I think you all know about that. So if that is a success, is that an opportunity to make that, our congregation's maybe signature project? We could do that on a regular basis, and we would become identified with the Death Cafe. People would come to the Death Cafe because it's organized by the Unitarians. Very successful in a lot of countries. So something to think about. That could be something to attract new members. And thinking a bit further outside the box, maybe, did you know that Canada was the first country in the world to legislate Kindness Week? It's held the third week of February after the bill was signed into law in 2021. So it's fairly new. I don't think a lot of people know about it, but yeah. So the bill stated that the purpose of this week is to improve the health and well-being of Canadians by encouraging acts of kindness, volunteerism, and charitable giving. So is that something we could promote every February in the community and keep it going through the year? Because we know that people are inherently kind and show empathy to those in need. Of course, there are many ways that people can show acts of kindness, you know. Smiling at a stranger, smiling at someone, offering a greeting, buying someone a cup of coffee in the coffee shop. There are millions of ways to be kind and make people have aha moments. Why did that person do that for me? That was so wonderful. So what if we took the lead on that every February? Encouraged everyone in Sarnia to carry out an act of kindness. We could even have a draw, maybe for the best acts of kindness, although they're all great. So, and it's so important now because we have people like Elon Musk who say that empathy is a weakness. He's actually said that. That is why Western civilization is collapsing, he says. It's because we spend too much time being kind to people. We shouldn't be kind to people. So that's basically what he's saying. And it's tragic and it's disgusting. So those are just a couple of ideas I'd like to throw out there. So maybe I'll open it up now. Does anyone have any ideas they'd like to share?